see you all. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. Lovely to see you all as always, and welcome to the October Includability Employer Support Group. Weather's looking pretty moody outside, but I promise we're going to bring the sunshine in with an incredible lineup of guest speakers to really inspire you on your journey in creating a healthier and a more inclusive workplace culture. I'm delighted to be joined this morning by the brilliant Dan Williams, CEO of Orien. We have Melissa Meakins, Head of Partnerships at Carma, our brilliant verification partner for talent management, and of course, co-founder of Talent Mapper, the wonderful Martin Mason. And we have the wonderful Saski, Everyday Pride, LGBTQIA+ inclusion consultant too. Now, you may well be thinking at this point, well, that's all very well, Dave, but where's the good-looking bearded one who normally hosts these gigs? Well, unfortunately, Paul can't be with us this morning. He sends his love and his apologies. So I'm so sorry that you've been lumbered with me, but I promise to look after you all across the next hour. I'm under strict instructions not to press too many buttons, just in case I kick us all out of the call. So fingers crossed, and here's hoping. So before we begin, please do feel free to introduce yourself on the chat feed. We'd love you to share your LinkedIn profile if you'd be happy to do so. And please do connect with our brilliant guest speakers today. We are all about facilitating great introductions at Includability. And of course, there'll be great opportunity to introduce yourselves in our breakout rooms in just a little under half an hour. We'll also be sharing various links in the chat feed over the course of the ESG, but please don't be shy. If you have an upcoming event or some great news that you'd love to share, then please don't hesitate to pop that into the chat feed. We love shouting about the incredible work of our Includability community. Similarly, if there's any more information that you need at any point around Includability or to chat through how you can become an Includability committed employer, then Danny, our lovely partnerships manager, and I are forever at your service. We've got Chris, our lovely comms manager, of course, with us today as well. Danny, Chris, give us a wave. Look at those good looking guys. Fantastic. So damn jealous. Danny and I are both complete and utter floozies for a virtual cuppa at any point. So anything that we can do to support you, then we are there. So without further ado, I am thrilled to introduce our first guest speaker, the wonderful Melissa Meakins, Head of Partnerships at B Corp Certified Carma. We love Carma and the amazing work they do. So thank you so much for joining us, Melissa, and the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and what an introduction. So thank you, Dave. Super excited to be here. Yes, I'm Melissa. I'm the Head of Sales and Partnerships at Carma. David has asked me to talk to you today about my journey, just my employment journey, my sustainability journey, and how I've ended up working for Carma. And also, I'm an absolute hippie at heart. So Dave was very keen for me to share some of the wild and wonderful things I do in my life that contribute to sustainability. And then I'm also obviously going to talk about Carma as well and the wonderful company that I work for. So I'm going to share my screen. Bear with me, because even though I work for a tech company, I'm not the best at tech. I'll be honest with you, my forte is sales. So bear with me whilst I... how do I share my screen? Oh, okay. We will get there. So, here we go. I will also caveat that I'm not the best with PowerPoints either, and Jim, who's my CEO, is on the call as well, and he can vouch for that. So, but the first slide is basically just giving you a few prompts as to what I was going to talk about. So, so in terms of my my journey through my career, I left school at 16. I went to work for a bank. So that was Lloyd's TSB at the time, which then became Lloyd's and then became TSB, which is a weird journey. And I worked for them for 15 years. And I realized that after 15 years, it didn't quite align to my morals. It's a long time to figure out that it didn't work with my morals, but we got there in the end. And so 15 years later, I left and went and worked for, went into recruitment. Now, I've already had this discussion with the wonderful Danny and Dave, and unfortunately 10 years ago, that industry probably wasn't the best reputation. If only I'd met Dave and Danny at that time and had a chance to work for a company. It was incredibly refreshing to meet people in that industry, and it actually reinstated my faith in recruitment. I had a dreadful time in recruitment, 3 years of being overworked, underpaid, being told, that you're probably not good enough or you're only as good as your last sale. That's quite a hard industry to work in, and my mental health really deteriorated during that time. So I left recruitment, and I walked out very dramatically and said I'd rather have no job than this job. And I look back now and cringe at that. But I did that. So I left recruitment, and I was in between jobs, and I was struggling for money, and I was using an app. I was using Instagram, and I saw an app called Too Good to Go. And Too Good to Go, for those who don't know who they are a food waste app. It means that you can purchase food at a reduced cost at the end of the day before they close, to say before going in the bin. And I thought this was magical. Was struggling for money, and I could buy amazing food at a reduced cost. Now, Too Good to Go are a Danish-owned company. They are a B Corp as well. It's very magical to work for a B Corp, and I'm so blessed to actually be working for B Corp again. But Too Good to Go, I worked for them for 4 years. Fast forward 4 years, I started as a salesperson. I then, went up the ladder, ended up becoming their regional sales manager, and I then went over to New York and launched a sales team over there. So 4 years, passionately fighting for the cause of fighting food waste. It's the #1 contributor to climate change. And for me, my three passions in life are food, people, and the planet. And that really aligned to my morals and my ethics. So I bought on 500 businesses. I saved 250,000 meals and in the bin. It was such a journey, and such a pleasure to work for such a cool company. Um, and knowing that I was doing something that was helping the planet, was really quite special. 900 million tons of food gets wasted every single year. This is perfectly good, perfectly edible food. Like I said, it's the #1 contributor to climate change. Now, I'm not here to talk about Too Good to Go, obviously, but I think you'll understand why. I was so passionate, so wedded to the company. And then when I left, I wanted a new challenge. So I went and worked for a company called Habu, who are a startup in Bristol. They are a logistics slash fulfillment company. So basically Amazon, but without the platform. Not the greenest of companies at all. But I saw it as a challenge. I wanted to turn things around. So I was a UK sales manager. I was managing 30 business development managers, which within my year, I had to fire 18. I had the name of Grim Reaper, which I'm not too proud about. But anyway, so what I was doing was helping people to find what they were good at, basically. So, and during that journey, I tried to create a environmental committee, a charity committee. Unfortunately, I was fighting a losing battle. People, the planet were not the priority for that company at all, sadly. I was one of 13 leaders in the company, and I was the only female. There was no diversity. It just wasn't a company that was aligned to my morals. So I left there in April. Now, I left there because it didn't what I truly believed in, which was people on the planet. And I tried my hardest, and I not admitted failure, but I just needed to move away. And the one good thing that came out of working at Habu was that I met this amazing guy called Jim Holland, who, yes, he's my CEO, and I'm going to call him that, obviously, but he really is. And I met him at an expo the week that I left Habu. I the instant energy, the vibe was just incredible, and we had a great connection right from the get-go. And I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. So when I left Habu, I promised myself that I would work for a company that aligned to my morals again. I wasn't going to sell out. Habu paid a great amount of money, and I realized that actually that's worth nothing, really. When I look back from when I left recruitment, I was able to survive very little, and that's what I went back to. And money isn't everything, but actually getting up, knowing you're doing a good job, and being happy is got to be worth so much more, and it truly is. So Jim reached out to me and said, "Where have you gone, Meakins?" and being ex-military, they like to call each other by their surnames. It makes you feel like a police officer, if I'm honest. But yeah, so calls me Meakins, and he, we got talking, and here I am today. As I started there back in June. Was contracting for a couple of months doing their sales, and I'm now working as their head of sales and partnerships. So that's my journey in terms of what got me here to Carma. Um, and Jim calls me Mother Earth Meakins because that's who I am. Like I said, my three passions are food, people, and the planet, and not necessarily in that order. I think it's probably all equal. But I work for Carma for 3 days a week. I am also outside of work. I'm a private chef, so food is really dear to me. I cook for homeless people on Christmas Day. I do volunteer work in terms of cooking as well, making sure that people have access to really good food, and that it's not at an extortionate cost as well. Um, I am, like I said, an absolute hippie. I'm in Bristol. You can't live in Bristol and not be a little bit of a hippie. Let's face it. So, if you were to come into my house, I don't have a bin. And this bit me the other week when we stayed at Airbnb, and Jim can vouch for this. I believe that everything can be recycled, and it can. If you truly think about what you might put in the bin at home, it can actually be recycled. So that's from your soft plastic to just everything. I compost. And I don't think the Airbnb quite understood my sustainability or my environmental actions. So that caused a bit of drama, but there we go. So, and then, yeah, if you're in my house, I drink from jam jars. I save all of those and drink from them. I don't have wine glasses, unfortunately, that my friends still can't get their head around. I save the water when I turn my shower on, and I water my plants with it whilst it's warming up. So, I try and do as much as possible to reduce my impact on the planet, because that's what's really, really important to me. So, and the one thing I really wanted to do when I left Habib, like I said, as you can probably tell when I was talking about Too Good to Go earlier, how passionate I was about Too Good to Go. I was passionate about the company, the cause, the mission, everything that had been achieved. And I said to Jim a few weeks ago, that's the position that I want to get to, how I want to talk about Carma. I want to stop talking about Too Good to Go, like I did, when I first started working for Carma. And I want that to be replaced by Carma. And I did a talk, I did a lecture at sixth form at the school that I actually left 23 years ago. I went back there and I did a lecture about Carma and deforestation and the impact on climate change. And I think that was a huge milestone for me in terms of now I am passionately talking about Carma. And I've been proud to say I'm part of Carma from day one. Obviously, but I think that was a real turning point for me. So yeah. So moving on, I obviously now want to talk to you a little bit about Carma. We'll get rid of that horrible slide that there was there before. My prompts, I managed to do without the prompts, which is great. So who is Carma? Well, Carma, we're now an award-winning social enterprise company, and we're a force for good, obviously. And what we do is we make social and environmental impact easy, accessible, simple, affordable. And in a nutshell, what we do is we plant trees, which I've never heard anyone say, well, that's rubbish, isn't it? Everyone always says, well, that's great, that's nice. And it is. Now, we are obviously about the environmental impact that we can have by planting trees, and we know how important trees are to us, but we're as much about that as we are about the social impact side. So when we talk about the social impact side, what we do here in the UK is we plant trees, and we work with a charity called the Green Task Force. And the Green Task Force employ ex-military personnel to plant the trees. Quite often when people leave the military, they suffer from PTSD, they find it difficult to resettle, they find it difficult to get back into society, as we would say. Our CEO, Jim, he is ex-Navy, he was there for 12 years. My sales manager is ex-Army. He was in the Army for 7 years. I almost made it into the RAF, so that's my military story. But the point is, we are able to give these people purpose and through nature-based therapy. And we're in tree planting season now. It's cold, it's wet, it's pretty miserable outside, as Dave already alluded to earlier. It's good for the soul. So getting out there, planting trees. So from October to the end of March, we're out planting trees with with some huge names. We've got Go Cardless, we've worked with Starbucks, etc. And so they come out and they plant trees with us. And what we also do abroad is we plant trees with a company called Veritree, and they work with several NGOs and communities to plant these trees and to reforest where unfortunately the trees have been taken down. When I said that, food waste was the first, the most impactful action to take against climate change, I'm really proud to say that, reforestation is the fifth most impactful action. I don't think there's many people going to say that they've worked for two companies that have had the biggest impact on climate change, which is really, really cool. So, as I said, we work with the Green Task Force here to plant the trees in the UK, and then we also plant trees abroad with Veritree. We did work with Eden, but fortunately, the one thing they couldn't provide us with was the data and the verification. So we now work with Veritree, which is exciting. They're a Canadian company, and they do exactly that. They provide us data. They tell us stuff about the soil and the water. They put webcams up to take photos of the biodiversity and all the wonderful wildlife that there is that's happening around with all these trees being planted. So they're a really cool company. The reason why we do that is because we have a really serious situation going on the planet. We lose about 30 the size of 30 football pitches, easy for me to say, every minute. So in the time it takes you to say the word deforestation, a couple of football pitches have been taken down, which is really sad. And we've lost about 90% of, for example, Madagascar's rainforests. We've actually lost about 50% of all the trees on the planet since mankind has been here. We've lost 50% of our corals. It's not a happy story, but this is the reason why Carma exists, and why we work with such wonderful companies such as the Green Task Force and Veritree to try and reverse that and have our impact as much as possible. So, as I said earlier, what is the solution? Well, to planting trees, that is the fifth most impactful action you can take against climate change, and it's a company called Project Drawdown. For any of the nerds and the scientists out there who love anything about the environment, I recommend that you have a look at Project Drawdown. Project Drawdown is a group of scientists and researchers that have come together to figure out what the problems are with climate change and then provide solutions. I mean, if only is as easy as that, right? But they've drawn up a list of solutions and what we can do. So if there's a couple of things that I could we talk about inspiring people, and I hope that just by listening to me waffle on for 10 minutes, whether it's about my personal life or whether it's some of the actions that you can take in your day to day, whether that's to plant trees, whether it's to get out into nature, maybe question you having a bin at home, I don't know. I hope that you can at least take something away from today that can inspire you to take action. And then if at least one person has done something, then I always consider my work to be done. And that's it. So I'll stop sharing.
Melissa, you are wonderful. Thank you so much. Like, just inspirational, a wonderful background. Thank you so much for being so generous and sharing that with us. And in Carma and the amazing work that you do as an organization, it's extraordinary. We absolutely love the partnership that we have with Melissa and with Jim and the team at Carma through both Includability and Disrupt. So please do contact with them. They do outstanding work, and we'll be planting not one but two trees through them on behalf of every single one of you. Lovely bunch for attending with us this morning. Melissa, thank you again so much.
No,
Wonderful
thank
to see
you. Thank you so much. Thanks for
Thank you.
having me, guys.
Honestly, absolutely brilliant. Melissa's just the best. And now for our next guest speaker, Dan, forgive me, because I know you've got like a hard stop for 11. Busy bee that he is, but what a guy. I'm delighted that we've stolen Dan now for the second time in as many weeks after he kindly joined us as a guest panelist for our cost versus ethics supply chain webinar that we held with Disrupt Agency a little earlier on the month. Absolutely thrilled to introduce the brilliant Dan Williams, CEO of B Corp Certified Orion. Orion also completed the 6-star verification process earlier this month to become an includability committed employer. Dan, amazing to have you with us as always, mate. And I'd love to take the chance.
Thanks, Dave.
Bless you. Great to see you. And just to kind of, I guess, sort of talk through just over the next couple of minutes while we've got you, some of the amazing things that you are doing as a B Corp. Could you perhaps share with us and talk us through what inspired you to become a B Corp in the first place, and what that process looked like for you in certifying?
Yeah, sure. Great talk, by the way, Melissa. It was super inspiring. Like, following that is a little bit different. We're a manufacturer. It's been going for just over 14 years now. So manufacturing, you're having a massive impact, aren't you, on the planet? So probably about 5 years ago, that was when everyone around the team was really starting to think about what more we could be doing to support it. And we were really focusing very heavily on the environment side of things, and then the community more than anything else. And then we started coming up with a strap line to pretty much encompass it all. So we came up with Orion, which is beauty built better. And the beauty speaks for itself, like the skincare and the hair care side of the business. But then built was the innovating, the manufacturing, the actual filling of the product and how it's all created. And then the better was, it was kind of a bit where we landed. It was like, better for who? So it was better for the community, being our staff, our supply chain, everyone around us, the local area, the environment, and for you. Is kind of where we ended up. It's like, okay, so how can we start doing things along that? And then we started having a look at things like putting solar on the roof. Fortunately for us, as a bit of a backdrop, that came just before the energy crisis as well. So from a timing perspective, that was quite nice. We started looking at that. Then we started having a look at how much things we could start formulating with cold process rather than heating up the water, and how we could start using less heat and energy from that side of stuff. Then what was happening during that time, people were really getting a really big buzz. And then people started asking if we could support, as employees, can you support my son's football team, or can you support this? We're really struggling. And then word of mouth started getting out. Then other people around the community started asking, especially during COVID and everything else, asking if we could help out with that. So slowly we started really building this community, and other people started seeing what we were doing on LinkedIn and social and started commenting. And then we started having a few other brands that we were working with were going down this B Corp journey. And it was still a bit new. We were so focused on what we were doing. We weren't looking so far out and looking at beyond about what we could be doing to get recognized for certain things. But then people started saying, why don't you go for this? Because you're ticking all these boxes, this whole ESG movement. And we're like, well, I know we're doing a lot, but maybe we're not doing enough. So we just locked ourselves in a room, did the self-assessment, and actually realized we were doing way more than we actually gave ourselves credit for, which is really exciting. And then we went down that journey, and back in December last year, we got the B Corp, and that was more for a case of, that's nice for us to be recognized for everything we're doing. But the biggest thing that I love about that is that it's very quickly, when the day job's getting in the way, you can start getting complacent about what you're doing. So the B Corp thing for me is just massive, and it can keep you on that journey and hold everyone account. And it's actually really nice because everyone, as an employer, all our employees are really buying into it. And I'd say I think this leads nicely into the beauty coalition piece. It's like, we now, when we're working with the brands that we're working with, we're having a look at the most sustainable raw material solutions that we can find, while still ticking the boxes for the brands that we're working with and giving them some guidance, and the best packaging and the best logistics. And you've got this amazing network with sharing best practices and the governance stuff. So it feels like, and I completely underestimated this whole B Corp movement and the environment and the people and the network that you have around you that just constantly want to support you and look out for you. And I just find it truly inspiring. It's amazing. So that's kind of in a nutshell how we ended up there. But yeah, I like drinking out of jam jars. That's more because I'm absolutely like a hipster at heart or anything, and actually a hippie. But yeah, I do have wine glasses like Melissa, which is really disappointing, but they were a gift more than anything.
Everybody's going to be drinking out of jam jars. Melissa, that's all your fault, but love you for it.
Yeah, after all your talk, that was the one thing I've taken away from it. Yeah.
Damn, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And what I love so much is that ability you have as a company to inspire other organizations around you to really take positive action and also the support that you provide to enable that to happen. You're wonderful. You mentioned the Beauty Coalition, and I think, and I'm so thrilled that you did, because I think this captures beautifully the ability you have as a business to bring people together. Tell us a little bit more about the Beauty Coalition. Like, what is it? How did it begin? How's it progressing? And what are your hopes for it moving forward? So many questions.
Yeah, I think it began from those just to encourage these best practices and to really focus on those three areas and drive that movement there and create that network of best practices. I think the big thing for me when I was having a look, it came after we got the B Corp. We were asked if we wanted to join this. I was having a look at it, and I could see all the brands that were associated with it, the businesses that were operating. I was like, there's absolutely no downside to being part of a body like this, and there's just so many upsides where we can share all these learnings together, and I think it would really help. So that was really the main driver for me. And there was one comment that it was if the I can't remember, I was watching one of the videos, and it was like, if the environment needs to remain beautiful if humans want to be beautiful. And it's like, that really resonated. But you work in the beauty industry. I never thought I'd end up in the beauty industry, by the way, despite clearly how I look with cleared and stuff like that. That was 22 years ago now. But yeah, I think just how it started to encourage people the best practice, because it's really hard when you're working on your business and you're in isolation, and especially over the past few years, you're just getting fixated on that day to day. It's to be part of that bigger group, that bigger network that's encouraging certain behavior and almost like peer-to-peer holding people to account. And I think that's the big thing. Once you're part of these bodies, it definitely causes you to actually be looking at things very differently and really openly.
Totally agree, Dan. Thank you so much. That's brilliant. And I know that when we mentioned in the introduction, huge congratulations over becoming an includability committed employer. It's just something else to add to all the amazing accolades that you've garnered as a brilliant award-winning business. And of course, now we've got this amazing ever-growing community of B Corps within includability. Tell us what attracted you to includability in the first place. And
that was just you and Danny.
I love you for that. The postal order for £10 in the post, Charma.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I think the big thing for that, and it's similar why we looked at while we're just still working with investors and people as well, and like includability for me, just this another area. When you're so driven, like running the day-to-day business, especially when it's been such a struggle over the past few years, what you don't want to do is just keep giving yourselves as like an SMT. Like, we genuinely think we're really approachable as a team, and we're really close with all our employees. But what I was really conscious of, I didn't want there to be this subconscious bias where we're all giving each other a pat on the back and we're all thinking we're doing a great job, and our staff and our is what we think it is. Like, I was really keen to make sure employees, they're actually having the best experience that they can when they come to work. So getting involved with you guys, I just think it's another great way of making sure that where we think we're going is where we're going, and you're going to help us continue to improve and keep providing our staff just like the best culture and the best environment we possibly can. But you're out of work a long time, aren't you? So we want people to be having as much fun and enjoying themselves as possible. Investing in people is massive for us, and progression. It just feels like that's a great way and a great team to be part of, to be honest.
Oh, Dan, thank you so much. You're such an inspiration, the amazing work that you do as a business, and really appreciate all of your time with us this morning. It's been wonderful, absolutely wonderful catching up with you and hearing from you as always. And now I know that we were looking for that hard stop for you for 11. So Dan, thanks so much for allowing us to kidnap you again.
Great to meet you all. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Melissa. It was amazing.
Thanks so much, Dan. Honestly, you're absolutely brilliant. Thank you, mate. Lovely to catch up with you as always.
Thanks. Sorry, I've got to go. Take care.
No problem at all, mate. Have a great
day.
rest of your day, and to you. And on that movement, we're now going to head into our breakout room for the next 10 minutes. This is a great opportunity to connect and share best practice with all the other lovely attendees here this morning. So please feel brave. We'd love you to take the opportunity to introduce yourself. And as we move towards the end of the year, to perhaps share a project that you're championing for 2024 to support your workplace culture. We heard loads of great instances from Melissa and from Dan around some of the incredible things that are happening at Oriana and, of course, at Carma too. If you don't currently have a project that you're currently working on, then please don't worry. Hopefully you'll be able to pick up some brilliant inspiration from some of our other guests in that breakout room now. So I'll open up the breakout rooms, and I look forward to seeing you all again in just a few minutes. Everybody, welcome back. So lovely to have you back in. I hope you all had the opportunity to connect and have some really brilliant conversations. Please don't be selfish. Feel free to share any highlights in that chat feed. Share that gold with us. We'd love to know. And now I'm delighted to introduce our third guest speaker, our brilliant verification partner for talent management and co-founder of Talent Mapper, the brilliant Martin Mason. Martin, so great to see you as always, and the virtual floor is yours.
Oh, thanks, Dave. Much appreciated, and lovely to be here. Thanks for having me. It was a great chat as well in the breakout room, so thank you for organising that, Dave. Some useful nuggets that just came out of that have certainly made me reflect and think about how we do things in our business as well. But for those of you folks that I haven't had the pleasure or privilege of meeting yet, my name is Martin Mason, pronouns he, him. And as Dave mentioned, I'm the co-founder of an organisation called Talent Mapper. Just to give you a quick potted history in terms of how we started with Talent Mapper and why this area is so important to me. I've previously always been in large organisations, leading their talent or learning and development and D&I functions. And one of the things that I found really interesting was everyone I was speaking to in my network tended to approach talent management in a very similar way. It tended to be based on quite subjective measures often, and it wasn't helping us to attract, retain, develop the right team members or staff to progress through into the organisation. And so we're really keen to try and find more creative and interesting ways of doing that. Was fortunate enough to meet my co-founder about 18 months ago, and has an amazing kind of brain for technology, which was super helpful because whilst I know the field of talent management, technology, as anyone that knows me well, is not a strength area. You certainly wouldn't want me coding anything. So between us, it's made quite a good recipe for success. And me being able to download my talent brain at him and working with a team of developers, we've been able to build out some pretty cool technology that's helped to start to think about doing talent management differently. The primary function that we serve and what we try to do in all of the work that we do and in working with a lovely team at Includability is just to see how we can remove some systemic barriers that exist in the talent management process, help other organisations to look at their talent processes with a fresh pair of eyes and think about how they can better serve underrepresented groups and also achieve their business's aims of filling roles, upskilling folk, and basically creating more equity around the access to development, progression and alike. So I pulled together a bit of information that I hope will be useful for you today in terms of some of the trends that we're seeing in talent management, thinking about how businesses can better retain, engage and inspire their workplace talent. And then I'll share details as well. So if anyone wants to carry on the conversation or chat through, a bit like Dave, we're also a bit of a floozy for a cuppa and a chat around talent management. So always happy to do that anytime. But I'll share a bit of information with you. One of the things that I think is quite interesting, and you'll probably see quite a lot taking place on social media and out in the kind of wider world being reported in the news, is we know there is a massive skills shortage currently, and that curve is accelerating at pace. So many businesses that we work with and are connected to are struggling to fill roles today, but also struggling to think about how they can fill future roles, some of which that don't even exist today. A great example of this would be, you might have seen that Netflix recently appointed a vice president of AI. I'm pretty confident that role wouldn't have existed even 12 months ago. And we're going to start to see a lot of change in that space where there's so many new roles emerging. We've not necessarily done a great job, particularly in the UK as a country, but also as organisations in starting to plan and prepare for some of the skills that we're going to need for the future. And so hopefully what we share with you today will start to get you to think about how you might be able to do a little bit more of that. In terms of what we're going to talk about, I was going to look at some thought leadership in talent management, where that's moving to, think about what the future of talent management is starting to look like and what we're seeing with some of the more progressive organizations that are doing some great work in this space, and then getting you to think about how you can develop a really effective and inclusive approach to talent management. And they're really happy to do any questions through the chat feature or to connect with you afterwards. One of the big trends that we are seeing in this space is the death of the 9-box grid. Now, for those of you in smaller organizations that may not be familiar with this god-awful tool, it is a process that was designed in the 1950s, originally to help organizations start to think about who were their star players in their organization, so they could really accelerate them, put more resources around them, and prioritize these folks for kind of development opportunities or investment, and a way of kind of managing out talent that wasn't meeting the needs that the business had anymore. The challenge with the 9-box grid as a concept, and one of the reasons why it charged with me so much as a talent professional, is it's an incredibly subjective tool. It often doesn't really lend itself to what the organization needs to achieve today and also for the future. So just by popping people into boxes, it's not really going to help you as an organization start to think about what talents and skills that you need for the future, and actually how do we take person A to the role or opportunity that we need them to be in. So it's often used as a method to categorize people. It's supposed to look at potential. I have worked now with 54 different organizations over the last 3 years, and I'm yet to find anybody that has found an objective measure for potential. So if you are sat on that golden nugget, I would love to hear from you, because it's the holy grail I've been searching for and yet to find. It's often littered with a lot of bias, because it tends to be lots of leaders sat in a room deciding whether folks should be placed into a role or have got the potential based on their own subjective opinions, as opposed to factual data or insights. And also what we find with a lot of businesses that do run talent processes is that they spend a lot of the time and focus in those sessions focusing on where people should be in these boxes, as opposed to the output of what we need this talent to do for us in the business. What we're starting to see, though, is this emergence of kind of more future focused and technology driven talent solutions. So there's quite a few early adopters of this, particularly in the US. We're seeing in Silicon Valley now quite a few of the big organizations like your Unilevers, your Netflix, and folks like this that are starting to invest in more progressive ways of managing talent in a more agile way, rather than trying to look at traditional org structures. And what this really boils down to is 3 things that we need to know about our people. We need to understand what skills and capability they've got. We need to look at what aspirations they have. What are they interested in? What do they want to do? What do they care about? And then finally, what's their availability? So what opportunity have we got to move them around to meet the needs that we have? Although it seems super simple, if you find out those 3 things and just focus on these 3 things and nothing else, it's amazing how much talent that you discover that you've got in your business, and where you can start to place people in different opportunities or projects that you might not have historically thought about, because we're human beings and we do tend to like things being neatly packaged in boxes. So we like to put people in those. When you take those boxes away and just focus on the raw data and skill, it's fascinating to see the opportunities and potential for what people can do, develop and grow within their organizations. We're also seeing this massive shift and move away from traditional competency frameworks and guess like skills mapping that used to take place, where we've got like job families within businesses, traditional org structures where they tend to be quite static. Businesses then look at it every few years and reorganize, make redundancies, create new roles, and then we go through this vicious cycle every few years. What we're already starting to see is the amount of businesses that are moving away from that and starting to look at their organization structures in real time, but also starting to focus on future roles that they're going to need, and starting to place folks into those purely using the 3 methods that I mentioned before around skills, aspiration, and availability. Some general principles for how you can do this and make your business inclusive from a talent management point of view. The more transparent you can be around your selection criteria, the more transparent you can be around the way that that's scored or measured. What we see is that the businesses that do that are the ones that have the most diverse candidate pools at mid to senior level, particularly. We've been working with quite a few enterprise customers now over the last few years, and we've seen that we've seen massive shifts of representation of diversity at mid to senior level, where you start to have very transparent and visible scoring methodology. So instead of just asking 10 questions in an interview, actually before you go into that interview, being really clear about, okay, what does success look like? Let's write that down before we go into the interview and work out what does a score of a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 mean. That way you can start to get more objective scoring in your processes, and it really helps to mitigate bias that you might have about the individual in the process. The other thing that I find really interesting in both recruitment and talent selection is the lack of output focused metrics that we tend to use in this, which is one of the reasons why we tend to see a lot of enterprise customers at senior level, why there's such a lack of representation, because we tend to go with people that fit with us as opposed to add value, because we've not thought about what success looks like in that role. So when we step back and think about, persons in the role, what will they be achieving? What does success look like? And then map the process back to that, we start to see very different results manifesting through that process, and also a massive shift in diversity profile. Using data in the process, so being really clear about what that success looks like, whether that's performance data, whether that's employee engagement, whether it's sales data, whatever it is that works for your business, being really clear on those metrics for success and then selecting against that means that you've got the best possible chance of mitigating bias. And wherever you can use technology, it doesn't have the same level of human biases that we have. So we're able to look at more objective data and start to make more informed decisions and start to challenge our own thinking as to whether somebody can do the role that we envisage for them. What we've been able to do with that at Talent Mapper is start to take that and put that into practice with our different organizations. And what we try to do is make the process as transparent and equitable as possible by showing people the different opportunities that they could achieve within an organization, showing them really clear what skills they have today, what skills they would need to achieve for the future. So it puts the power back in their hands and starts to get them to think about what they could do to develop around that. Now, for those of you in smaller organizations, this is quite a nice and straightforward activity that you can do. If you've got circa 10, 20 roles, actually just mapping out what they are and making that visible to folks and saying, if you want to do this job, these are the skills that are required to do it. It's amazing how many people really resonate with that. And then it really helps them with their development planning to start to think about opportunities that they could undertake to help move them through and up within the organization. Retention of talent within that as well is massively impacted, because if people can see themselves or a future with your organization, they're less likely to look in the external world. Being able to create projects or opportunities around that is also great, where you can make those things visible. So showing people things that they can do and what skills they'll acquire through that means that they've got the best possible chance for success. I think that's all I've got time for. But if you want to ask any questions or chat this stuff through further, then please do pop stuff in the chat. Thank you very much.
Martin, thank you so much. Absolutely amazing as ever. Talent Mapper do extraordinary work with organizations of all sizes. And I know that so many businesses within the includability community have benefited from their guidance. And of course, they get Martin, and everybody gets Martin if you go through that process, through that verification process to become an includability committed employer yourself. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Martin, thank you again. You've been absolutely brilliant, as you always are. And now, just before I introduce our final guest, I'd love for you to vote for a charitable project that we can support on your behalf this morning through our partnership with B1G1. If you haven't heard of B1G1, please do check them out. They're an incredible B Corp that support hundreds of charitable projects, both in the UK and internationally, all positively impacting the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So Chris is going to be amazing. He's going to pop in some great options into the chat feed. This is a great way to show incredible things for the planet that you're doing simply by being awesome and hanging out with us this morning. So yay you. So Chris is going to drop those projects in now. 3 projects to choose from. Simply pop the letter of your chosen project in the feed. A, B, or C. Project A is providing access to clean water to families in Cambodia. Project B, planting trees for forest protection in India. And Project C is the gift of 5 textbooks to disadvantaged children in Kenya. 3 amazing projects, all supported through B1G1. Thank you so much. So please cast your votes. And as you do so, I am delighted to introduce our final guest speaker, a Pride host, LGBTQIA+ inclusion consultant, presenter, speaker, and just an absolute legend who not only empowers, but also strengthens communities in the workplace and society. Saski, no pressure at all after that intro. So amazing to have you with us, and the virtual floor is yours. Great to see you.
Oh, thank you so much, Dave. Thanks everybody. Sorry for me joining late. I've literally just finished doing a talk. I'm working with the Met Police at the moment. So I have been doing some very early morning talks with them about how we can work together with the LGBTQ+ community to create more cohesive relationships and communities and create better working relationships. So I haven't got a presentation to show you, but I will talk with you as we go along. So basically what I'm going to talk about today is just thinking about some quick top tips, really, in how we can be more LGBTQ+ inclusive in the workplace, and thinking about allyship. But really, you can take a lot of this and it's transferable. So whether we use this, you know, in the workplace, in schools, in family homes, in the wider society and everyday life. But in terms of the workplace, some quick top tips I'm going to be thinking about or talking about with you today is firstly thinking about where to start. And in fact, before I say another word, Dave, how long do I have? Because I could go forever.
Saski, you're wonderful. We would never stop you. You're incredible. So 10, 12 minutes around about that. But the floor is yours. You take as much time as you need.
All right, the clock. Boom, here we go. No, okay. So thinking about some top tips. So firstly, thinking where to start, really, because often, you know, people might want to, you know, update on their the ED&I, but they're not quite sure where to start. And it's thinking about, you know, how do I do that? And in this space of time, we've got some quick tips about that. Then we're also going to be looking at continued professional development, and just a bit of an understanding about that, and touching on some policies as well, because these are always important and a big player, should I say, in you know, having inclusion in the workplace. And then also looking at the power of allyship as well. So in terms of kind of where to start, I often, when I'm talking to you know, clients in workplace environments, you know, they're like, you know, we want to be, like, for example, LGBTQ+ inclusive. We don't have any issues, but, you know, we just want to show that we are. And it's all well and good to say we don't have any issues, and I hope you don't, and that's great. But in order to understand and really interact with your staff and know where or what and if there are any issues, you have to have a conversation. So you have to feel like there is that kind of open door policy for people to be able to do that. So I would say, if you don't feel that it's something that, depending on the size of your organisation, of course, if you don't feel it's something that could be done in like a team setting, or maybe people don't feel confident enough to talk about any issues they're experiencing, which is fair enough. Staff surveys are always a great way to start. So basically, simply working with maybe you know, your HR, one of your team leaders, thinking about the questions that you feel you want to ask as an organisation. You know, for example, open questions. Are you, you know, if you were experiencing homophobia, biphobia, transphobia, would you feel confident to report it? Are there any issues with training staff needs that you feel you need or the company needs to add? So little things like that you can start thinking about just to get the ball rolling, because what these conversations will do, or what the results of these surveys will do, is they'll allow you to kind of know where to start, and where your kind of organisation is at. And also it will help people it will send the message out that, you know, you may be at the start of your journey, but you're actually willing to try, and you want to work with them, your employees and your staff, to start asking these questions, so that you can start putting these measures in place to make positive change. And also it's the beginnings of creating, hopefully, that psychological safety. So when we talk about that, what we mean is thinking about, you know, do staff feel safe to air their opinions, to speak up in meetings, just to even give just to give examples of changes that they may want, and feel safe to be able to do that, and knowing that they will be supported if they do speak out about any issues they may be experiencing, as examples. But these staff surveys, to start with, really will help make the difference in allowing people to kind of get the ball rolling with you, if you like, so that you know kind of where to start on that. So once you know where your organisation is kind of at, you've got a bit of a playing field to work with, then you can start to think about, right, what do we need to implement to make changes? So of course, ongoing continued professional development is always really, really key and important. As an LGBTQ plus specialist, of course, LGBTQ plus training is key. I do offer everyday pride training, which is available online and in person, which can support creating inclusive and safe spaces as well. But this also, whether it's with myself or any other EDI specialist, you do need to make sure that your training is continuous, that it's refreshed, that it's for all staff at all levels, and you need to make sure that it is for onboarding as well, so that it is something that is kind of going from top to bottom throughout the organisation. And with that continued professional development, every kind of year or 6 months, or thinking about what changes need to be updated or happening. The reason this training is important is purely because it's refreshing people, it's giving them that education and awareness, and it's setting the tone as an organisation to show that actually you are inclusive, and you're making those efforts with training to make sure that your staff are aware that you are an inclusive environment and inclusive organisation too. And then that's also thinking about looking at policies as well. Now, policies, everyone talks about policies, always very boring when people talk about policies. But if you ever need a policy in your life, you want to make sure that there's a policy there to support you. You want to know that what policies are in place in case should you ever need them. But also policies are important because they're a reflection of the moral value as well of organisations, as well as, having that core support that are needed. So it's always important, to look at whether you're part of HR, whether you're senior leader, management, or even as an employee, just to have a look at what the company policies are in terms of your EDI policy. So looking at equal opportunities, looking at, is there a trans inclusion policy? Is there an anti-bullying and disciplinary policy? And looking at, are any of those policies stating that, not only are they not tolerant of homophobic, biphobic, transphobic abuse or behaviours, the same as they would be, same with racism or misogynistic behaviours, but actually are they in line with the Equality Act 2010? So are they in support of those 9 protected characteristics as well? So thinking about that, you've got your policy, you've got your questions where you're asking, where to start, finding out, what's actually happening within your organisation, so you've got an idea about that. Then you're having a look at the training that you're implementing to make sure that, you're showing as a company that as an organisation, we want training across the board. We want people to have education and awareness around inclusion. And then again, with those policies, checking in on them policies, do they need refreshing, do they need updating, or even, as I say, as an employee, knowing where you stand and what policies are in place should you need them in future or any point as well. And then with that, it's looking at, again, with that education and awareness, that's where that kind of, that power of allyship comes into place as well. So again, thinking about, the power of allyship, and again, just because of time, when I talk about allyship, just quickly to break that down, we're thinking about, thinking about awareness. So as an ally, the important thing about being an ally, I always say, is that we can all be impacted or affected by discrimination at any one time. So therefore, it should be all of our responsibility to tackle it. And with that, it's thinking about, if you are supporting a particular group, so for example, if you're an ally to the LGBTQ plus community, it's about understanding more about them, and education and awareness is key, because then you'll have an understanding about how to support going forward. So if you're educating yourself on discrimination, who it affects in the workplace and wider society, then you can know how to tackle it and where to start and what support you can offer, whether that's directly one-to-one or whether that's as part of a group, and again, as a manager to support allyship throughout your organisation. But that also comes with listening and learning as well. So when we're thinking about listening and learning, in order to understand really really true lived experience, you have to listen and understand about those real life experiences to get a true insight, because everyone will have a different lived experience. Everyone's journey will be different, although there'll be some core sort of situations or systematic issues that have to be dealt with or people have experienced. In terms of that one-to-one lived experience, everyone's journey will be different. So listening and learning, you know, is a good way to understand where people have come from, some issues they've experienced, and how you can again support as well. And with that also, you can then think about your own privilege and leveraging your privilege as well, because we all have privilege in one way or another, you know, some more, some less. So for example, your privilege could be even that you are a manager or you work within HR. Your privilege in that role is that you are making sure that, you know, diversity and inclusion training is being implemented. You are, you know, making sure that that is being pushed and regularly refreshed and updated. So think about, you know, your own role and maybe what changes you could make for the positive in order to be more LGBTQ plus inclusive as well. And then with that, when we think about the why of the ally, you know, that comes back to you, because the more you understand about the issues, the history, the support, the reason why you're supporting a particular cause or group, you know, the more empowered you will feel. And with that, you know, that will help you to be more able to speak up and speak out as an ally about those issues that those groups may be facing and those challenges they may be facing, and also how you can then show your support more, because the more you have that understanding, the more confident you may feel about challenging certain issues, particularly if there's a workspace situation, for example, where people may be experiencing homophobia, biphobia or transphobia. You know, if you're confident about understanding, you know, the importance of inclusion, you will feel confident to challenge. And when we talk about challenging, I do understand, you know, first and foremost, safety first. We don't always feel comfortable or safe to challenge directly if we hear kind of homophobic slurs, for example. But you can challenge in a positive way. For example, you know, that saying, so gay or you're so gay, is something that we always still hear, still doing the rounds. And I think if people do hear that, you know, if you hear them saying that, and adults say it too, by the way, I had it quite recently where I had to challenge someone on it. You know, if you do hear someone say that, for example, you can say, you know, when you said that, did you realise that was actually a homophobic slur? Did you know that was negative use of language? And quite often you'll get one of two responses. You'll get people who are very much embarrassed and apologetic, and they'll be very quick to say, you know, oh gosh, I didn't realise, and they'll think twice about saying that again. Or you'll get the other side of the coin where people will be aware of what they say. They don't really take it seriously. They don't seem to care. But then again, this is why it's important that whilst you're challenging it, you're actually reporting this as well. Because sometimes people may say, well, this is just banter. But the importance about understanding the difference with banter, you know, and homophobic slurs is if people can't really see that difference, then you know straight away you've got a problem. So making sure that things are reported so that they're hotspots, they're being monitored and they're being challenged by the hierarchy such as management and HR as well. So challenging HBT language, for example, homophobic, biphobic, transphobic language is really important, but it doesn't just fall on your shoulders. That's why you've got managers, that's why you've got HR, that's why you've got those policies in place to make sure that you are covered and supported as well, so that you feel protected. But if we don't report this, it won't ever change. So it is important that we do report these things. And then just quickly thinking about visibility as well, because these are very quick tips, of course, for the time we've got. So thinking about your workspace as a whole and that visibility, you know, if someone came to your work environment tomorrow or today, you know, how will it reflect that you are an LGBTQ plus inclusive organisation, for example? So, you know, are there staff wearing rainbow lanyards, for example? Do you have email signature sign-offs with people's pronouns? Do you have an ERG group? Do you have a Pride Employment Resource group, for example? Does your website state that you are an inclusive employer? And also, you know, not to bring in the pink washing thing, but we're not just celebrating LGBTQ plus people and communities during Pride season. Are you celebrating diversity days? Or highlighting them throughout the year, because, you know, we are all queer 365 days of the year. So again, you know, what is being shown visibly to reflect straight away that you are an inclusive organisation? And these are really quick and easy things that people can do. You know, there isn't one that has more kind of importance than the other, in my opinion, in terms of these quick 5 tips, because ultimately we need to kind of do all of them in order to, really start to make a change and to show that it could, we're reflecting these changes as an organisation. And I do feel, just before I round up, because again, I'm conscious of time, but I just do feel that the more we start to implement this, it's okay if you're learning, it's okay to ask questions. We don't have all the answers, but that's why we're on this journey for all of these, to create includability, as to quote includability, to create, change. And that's what this learning is about. So feel comfortable to ask questions, respectful questions, of course, but again, it's having a conversation with your staff first and foremost to know where you're at, and then start making your changes from there. I'm going to leave it there. Sorry, David, because I know I'm rambling on otherwise.
Not at all. Saski, you're amazing. Thank you so much. Just so utterly inspirational. And thank you for all of your guidance and for all of the knowledge that you bring. You're just amazing. And it's so worth noting that, as well as being, not only has been one of our brilliant includability ambassadors, Saski is also one of our fantastic partner experts. And we'll be talking more about the exciting developments around the ongoing consultancy support that we can provide at Includability and Disrupt next month on the ESG. Saski, thank you again. Absolutely brilliant. So amazing to see you as always. And thank you so much for running from one gig to the next at such rapid speed. It's fab to see you. Speaking of next month, a date for your diary is our final employee support group of the year. That will be happening on Wednesday, the 29th at 10:30 a.m. I think Danny's going to be a bit of a dream and drop that registration link into the chat feed so that you can register. We'll make sure that's on our newsletter for a little later on this week as well, of course. We'll be hosting the amazing Amy Polly, our Chief Mindfulness Rebel and future TEDx speaker, Jessica Simpson, who's the People and Culture Advisor at Sipsmith, Lynn Hodges, who's the MD at IMED UK, and the wonderful Charlotte Phillips-Lynn, founder of Questioning Normal. An amazing lineup of guest speakers, just as we've had today. So please do join us. We'd love to see you there. And that registration link, I think, has just been dropped in the chat feed as well now. Danny, thank you so, so much. And that brings us to the end of our ESG this morning. A huge thank you to our brilliant guest speakers, to Melissa, to Dan, to Martin and Saski. What unbelievable trailblazers you are. And thank you for all of your insights and sharing your wisdom with us today. And a huge thank you to every single one of you for joining us this morning. You are the includability community, and we can't create change without you. So thank you again. Huge happy birthday love to Chris, our comms manager. Please pop Chris a little heart emoji in the chat feed before you go. Chris is our heartbeat. We love him. We can't do this without him. And let's keep learning. Let's keep growing, and let's keep working in partnership to develop that mentally healthy and inclusive workplace culture. Can't wait to see you all next month. Love to you all, and have an incredible rest of your week. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us.